Good morning, Team Wilpers. It's Friday, and we have a great week coming up. A little extra time to do a few extra things probably. So anyways, I'm Coach Lorri. I live in coastal California, which is awesome. And for those who don't know me, I've been coaching now almost 25 years. And I've been an endurance athlete for almost 30. So mostly cycling, but a little bit of running for about 5 years when I raced. And also I just hiked the Grand Canyon, which was the coolest thing ever. So I've been part of Team Wilpers for the last 5 years. Actually, a little more than that. Mostly as a bike fitter. So I came on board in 2020 as a virtual bike fitter, and I've taken over the group coaching programs and couldn't have more fun with it. This has been an awesome experience. I was thinking this morning in the shower, of course, where we all do our best thinking, about a quote that I used for a seminar years and years ago. So I was a brand new baby coach back in, it was probably 2003, maybe 2004. And when you're new at something, you want a lot of exposure. And I had been invited to speak to the bike club at Genentech, which is one of the large Bay Area biomed companies here. So I'm sitting in front of a group in the auditorium at their brown bag lunch. And the topic they asked me to speak about was training. And so here's a bunch of scientists, basically. You've got chemists and biologists and really smart people. And my opening slide, because of course I had a PowerPoint, said, if you do the same thing the same way all the time, you become really good. And that just sat there to let them percolate on it. And then as I started, I revealed the rest of the slide, which says, you become really good at doing the same thing. So I'll let you think about that for a moment. If you do the same thing, the same way, all the time, you become really good at doing the same thing. Now, that might have a really positive connotation. So, for example, when I teach bike skills, when we do the same thing, we create a pattern of movement that allows us to recall that skill when we need it. So, for example, an emergency stop. If we are consistent with how we stop and get off our bike outside, then that becomes a natural part of the process. And we can recall without thinking. It becomes innate. So master is a good thing, right? We can practice and practice. And what do they say? 10,000 hours of a thing to become a master at that thing. But it can also be a negative thing when we think about adaptation, right? So if I think about my training, and if I'm doing the same thing all the time, I don't improve. I don't change. I become good at that one thing. And I think fitness is very much like that. So we're going to talk today a little bit about progressive overload and training principles in general. We'll talk about our cutback week, which is our current week. And then I want to chat a little bit about how to approach a week when you know that your schedule will be disrupted. Like many of you in the United States next week, or say you have some travel or illness. How do I approach training when my schedule can't go as planned? So we'll talk about a few things today. So we'll start with progressive overload. What is progressive overload? Well, that's not doing the same thing, right? So in progressive overload in training theory, what we're doing is we are intentionally increasing and thoughtfully increasing, right? We have a plan, our training stress, and we can do that through increasing our volume, our weekly volume, our annual volume. We can do that through increasing intensity. So maybe I'm going to add in certain types of intervals or certain training zones, or I test occasionally and it allows me to increase my training zones. So I'm increasing that intensity. I might increase duration of a specific ride, usually your long ride, right? And in cycling, that typically is the weekend. So maybe I increase from an hour to an hour and a half, to 2 hours to 2.5 hours. So, but we do this very thoughtfully. it is not a process where I go from riding an hour on the weekend to 6 hours on the weekend, right? That's not thoughtful or intentional or logical, right? I'm going to increase small incremental changes. I don't go from riding an hour a week to riding 10 hours a week because our body can't handle that, right? The human body, there are no shortcuts, as we've probably most of us learned. So I'm increasing all of those things. I may also reduce the amount of rest. And it may be that I'm reducing my time off. It may be that I'm reducing the amount of recovery between an interval. So I'm going to do all of those things, and it's going to be very planned. So then fitness is not linear, as we know. We don't just keep going up, 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 up. We have to come back down a little bit. And that's the concept of progressive overload. So I'm going to overload the body. Typically, we will look at training blocks in maybe a 4-week cycle, maybe a 3-week cycle. That's pretty common as we age. Our body takes longer to recover, can't take as much stress. And so maybe what I do is I train harder for 2 weeks, and then I take my cutback week. Or the model that most of us know, and that this training plan follows as well, is I train harder for 3 weeks, and then I take a cutback. And during that cutback, it's a planned reduction. And that's key. So it doesn't mean you're going to do all the other things in your training that you haven't been doing. We're actually going to take a break from training. Not complete rest, but we're going to then reduce volume, reduce intensity, reduce duration, and allow our body to absorb all of that. I was thinking about soup this morning. I've been making soup. Anybody else a soup fan in the winter? Anyways, we'll talk about that in a second. But as we look at our training schedule, if I were to graph this out, you would see that I increase week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. I break back down. And I don't go back to 0 though. I never go to that level of week 1 again. Maybe I go to week 1.5. So I'm somewhere between the volume and the intensity of week 1 and week 2. So my training stress score, in other words. And then I'm starting again. And so I go week 1, week 2, week 3, and I cut back again. So we go through that for an annual cycle. And then maybe we take a little bit of transition time as we did this fall. I may go through that for a multi-year cycle if I'm an Olympian. And yeah, if I'm an Olympian. You can all laugh now. Anyways, so even with that decrease, if you think of this chart, I am trending upward to the right. I am improving over time until I just am not anymore, and then we have a disruption or we age or whatever. But we never go back to 0. Oftentimes people will say, oh, I'm starting from ground zero. I had a surgery. I had a vacation. I had a breakup and I couldn't train. Whatever the situation is where you have a disruption in your training, your regular schedule, you will never go back to 0. Because first of all, the mental aspect of it, you are smarter, you understand, you know what it's like to work hard and work intentionally. But the physical aspect of it, once we start training, our body remembers that. We're never going back to 0 or lower, right? So it will be easier to regain fitness than it was to initially gain fitness, right? To make fitness in the first place. So super important concepts here, progressive overload. And recovery is probably the most important part of that when we think about it. So we're trending up, we reduce all of that. We typically schedule this in 4-week blocks. It might be a 3-week block. The benefits to this are huge. And I see this often in the Peloton world, but also in the outdoor cycling world. What are the benefits to taking that cutback week, to training in a progressive way? Well, as we know, we gain fitness. That's probably the first benefit. But that cutback week gives us mental recovery. It gives us physical recovery, right? So it allows us to take a break. Oftentimes, when I get to that cutback week, I'm really ready for it, physically and mentally. I've been putting off things like laundry because I've been too busy, or I've just been adding fatigue, and I'm just ready to take a break physically. It decreases my risk of injury and illness and burnout. When I am fatigued, My immune system is not as strong, which is interesting, right? We think of the immune system and the message that we get is, oh, exercise, it'll increase your immune system. It'll make you more efficient. Well, guess what? If you train hard and long enough, you are tapping into that immune system and it can't keep the cooties away. I could get injured. When I am fatigued, what do? My form goes. And then I do things wrong. We see it a lot in running because the risk of injury is higher there because of the impact of running. But we see it in cycling as well. Wow, I'm really fatigued. I can't stabilize my pedal stroke. And then I end up with a knee injury. Or in running, my stride changes and I'm fatigued, or I trip, or whatever. I pull a muscle. So, and burnout, obviously. So we decrease that risk of just not wanting to do the thing anymore. And that's a very fine line, right? Exercise is motivating, more exercise is more motivating. But at some point, you need a break. So it's good to have a cutback week. And if we do it right, it may lead to increased performance down the line. So we want to make sure that we honor those weeks. So those of you who are thinking, oh, I'm going to do high volume this weekend because she didn't give us much, think that again, right? So think about taking this week and honoring it, and the intention of this week, which is to long-term help you get fitter and stronger. So back to soup. It's like I take all the ingredients, the right ingredients, not the wrong ingredients. Could you imagine some of the things you could put in soup? And I put them in the right order. And I've prepared them in the right way. And then I just let it simmer. I love the smell of soup in my house. And I let it simmer for a long time. It's going to do its thing. And fitness is the same way. So there's your food for thought on progressive overload and our recovery weeks, our cutback weeks. Super important. Probably as important as what we do intentionally in our training weeks. Speaking of food, week 5, many of you have a food-related holiday coming up. And the first thing I want to say about that is you do not need to earn your turkey. I kind of hate that phrase, right? Earn the turkey, burn the turkey. Great. You deserve the turkey. We all deserve the turkey. We don't have to earn it. And so if your training schedule next week is going to be disrupted because of travel or family or a holiday, we can make some changes. We know it's a disruption. It's not going to end the world if you don't do your training. Although, if your training is your mental health, it may end the world if you have a lot of family coming over. Anyways, so how do I adapt my training for a disruption, such as a holiday? That's a hard one. We get that question a lot. First thing I want to say is don't try to stack it all up in a day or two. It doesn't make sense. Remember, progressive overload. So we don't want to suddenly increase the duration of a couple days and then have a few days off. What I could do is, so I don't want to stack intense rides. And thankfully in this program, you don't have 2 intense rides next week, really. You've got 1 day of intervals. And then I could take that day of endurance and add them together. So I've got 30 minutes of intervals, 30 minutes of endurance. I could add that together, do a 60-minute ride. I would say, for most of us, what we would want to do is the intervals first. So execute your intervals while you're feeling fresh, then ride out your endurance and keep it easy. Super important there. So we don't want to stack 2 hard classes together. We also don't want to do 2 hard classes back to back. And again, not an issue in this training block, but maybe in another future training block where we're doing more high intensity. So I can shift my days around. For example, I could take Thursday's ride and do it on Friday because we don't need to buy more things, right? And it's a short ride. So maybe I want to move my body after whatever I've done on Thursday just to feel better. Not because I have to burn it, but just because I want to feel good. Exercise is our routine, right? It's what keeps us healthy physically and mentally. So maybe I shift Thursday, put it on Friday. And at the end of the day, remember, missing 1 training day is not going to change the outcome of your life. But missing a family holiday might. So adapt next week as you need to. Adjust your schedule. If you need suggestions for how to do that, post it on the page. Post it on the Peloton group, the team group page. Post it wherever you want. Ping me, and I'm happy to make suggestions for you. So enjoy your holiday, everyone. And I will see you next Friday, by the way. And then I'm going to move my Bike Fit studio. That should be an exciting day. Anyways, what else is going on? I wanted to say, Jim Campbell's here. Jim, congratulations on your fundraiser. Jim just raised a lot of money for Ride to Recovery or Wounded Warriors. He can correct me. I think it's now called the Hero Project, actually. So all very similar projects. And he rode 100 miles on his Peloton. So that was awesome. And speaking of 100 miles, Guy Podesek is on a plane right now. I pinged him to say good luck. He is riding I almost called it Tour de Testosterone. Tour de Tucson this weekend, which is a big event. And I think it's his first century ride. So he's been following one of the Team Wilpers road cycling programs, the Road to 100 Miles. So we'll see how that goes for him this weekend, but it should be a great event and hopefully a fabulous experience. And we know he'll be prepared, so because he followed his training. Yeah, that's about it. A couple other things. Stay tuned. There's going to be a special announcement coming up in the next week about a pilot training program. So we're going to try something a little different and new. And I can't quite say anything about it yet today. But within the next few days, I will. So I'll hop back on here and share with you what we've got up our sleeves. And what else is going on? You may have gotten an email this morning. Our Black Friday, it's like the whole month of November, it seems these days. Black Friday sale started today. So there are discounts on coaching and Bike Fit. Those of you who keep saying, when are you going to do a discount on Bike Fit? So discounts on Bike Fit and merchandise. So if you need to grab some stuff, all of that is on the website and it's automatically discounted. So my cat is playing, of course, in the background. And that started today. And I think it goes through the following Sunday or Monday, but I can check on that. And it's probably posted on the website too. So that's about it. Here we go. Finishing week 4, going into week 5, not panicking, no panic training, right? We just follow the schedule. And if we can't, we adapt the schedule if we can. And if we can't, that's okay. So basics. Everything's on the platform, teamwilpers.com. PDFs with clickable links for those of you who love them. The free 3-ride challenge. The PDF launched onto the Facebook page just a few moments ago. If you want to do the 4 or 5 ride challenge, right? It's actually a 3-ride challenge with 2 bonus rides. But then you also have access to strength and all our training programs. All access membership is available for under $10 a month. And yeah, that's about it. So I will see you next week. Enjoy the weekend. Those of you who are traveling, I hope you have a great holiday. Stay safe. Don't get sick. Travel always seems to induce illness. So take the precautions that you feel comfortable with and have a great week. I will see you next Friday. Thanks for joining.